Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mission Control, a podcast focusing on executive directors and nonprofit leaders and how they strive to make positive impacts in their communities. I'm your host, Paul Schmidt, owner and creative video strategist for UnoDeuce Multimedia, and I'd like to welcome to the show Glenn Wilson, President and CEO of Communities First Incorporated. Hey, Glenn, how you doing?
Hey, Paul, how you doing? Nice to see you again. Excited to be here with you today.
Awesome. So, as we start every show, because it's called Mission Control, could you tell me what the mission is of Communities First?
Yeah, the mission of Communities First is to build healthy, vibrant communities through affordable housing, economic development, and innovative programming.
And now you're not just the president and CEO of Communities First, but you're also the founder.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Talk to me about that. I mean, why did you decide to create Communities First?
Yeah, I mean, just saw there was a need in our community. I mean, at one point, I thought I was going to, go off, play pro football, become a superstar NFL player, and come back and rebuild my neighborhoods and communities that I grew up in the city of Flint. So that was one idea. I had some things that happened that physically that didn't allow me to do that later in life after I played college football. But I still kind of had the thing in the back of my head that I wanted to do something. However, I was always been a serial entrepreneur most of my life, always dealing with things with service from healthcare, medical, transportation, and those different things. And really, for me, my faith is just important to me, and I prayed about it, and I just wanted to do something to really give back to the community. And I really thought about, I really wonder if I can do something in our community that would have lasting change. And so, with my healthcare background, I really saw that there was a lot of seniors that were staying in some places that weren't in very good condition. Saw that there was a huge need for affordable housing in our community. At that time, I was just talking to now is my wife, I guess, is my wife now, but we were friends at that time, which is, I guess, I would say she's the co-founder as well, Communities First Essence, and saw that great need and wanted to do something about it. So this is funny, me, very comfortable living, very comfortable uh, business that I had, and I said, "Hey, what if I sell my business and start this organization?" And so at this point, she had nothing to lose because we're just friends. So she's encouraging me. So basically, I said, "I'm gonna give it just like any business, give it 3 years and see what happens." And then and boom, this year we turned 15 years. So 2025 is our crystal ball year. So we turned 15 years this year. So we've been going for 15 years. So that's crazy. Been here for 15 years.
So 15 years. So with the math, where does that put us at? 2008?
2010. Yeah, we started in 2010.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's coming right out of the recession. Was there any type of trepidation in trying to do something nonprofit wise in that
It's interesting. Everybody told me I was crazy. Literally, they said, "I'm not going to hold you up." I'm talking about getting into housing when everybody else was running, right? So, I had a parent house earlier, years before going to foreclosure. So I saw, experienced that. I saw some other issues happen to other people, and the recession was hitting hard. Communities weren't being rebuilt. There was a lot of demolition happening. I think that's around the time when they had like a lot of NSP money where they were just tearing down stuff everywhere. And I was like, man, are people going to rebuild? Because people were just more or less, let's demo, tear everything down, let's get rid of the bad stuff. And I wanted to see what we could do to rebuild. So, looked at an old school building. Originally was looking at another neighborhood, wasn't really getting support there. And I made a pivot and went to another building where a neighborhood was a little bit more supportive and wanted to see things happen. And it's a lot more to that story, but man, it has been a blessing. And the organization from that first project, which was Oak School, Oak Street Senior Apartments now, was one of the, first adaptive reuse of school building in the country. It was like one of the very very first ones when people started doing that. So I didn't know how hard it was supposed to be until I got into it. But it was like one of those like you know figure it out, put together a team,
Mhm.
improvise, adapt, overcome, and so that's what we did.
So talk to me about the team. I mean, how many of you were when you started?
Oh no, it was just me. When we first started, it's me. Essence was helping when she
Mhm.
could because she had a full-fledged career running a college leadership program that she was very busy over, and then also a mentoring program. So she had a couple things that she was already doing at the college that she went to,
Mhm.
and honestly, it was me for about the first 4 years, of the organization. And when I say me, the first hire that I made was a contract CFO. Uh, and they actually got paid before I got paid because when we started getting in money, one thing that I really realized with nonprofits at a very early stage is financial fiscal responsibility is one of the things that usually keeps nonprofits from excelling. So I got an audit done when we had like $10,000 or something in the bank over like that first year and a half until we started bringing additional dollars from Oak Street. But I wanted to audit everything because I saw that it was a hindrance to us getting additional funding because people always say we want 3 years audited financial statements. Like, well, I've only been around. And so when we got to year four, I had my 3 years audited financial statements, and some of the foundation I was talking to were laughing, like, "Did you really audit $10,000?" Like, hey,
Mhm.
whatever. Let's do this. So it's been a blessing. It's definitely been a story that I'm definitely proud of. But I mean, now our staff is over 40, and we're continually growing and across a couple states and several cities, and so it's been a blessing.
That is a blessing. And so when you were um, out there by yourself trying to get interest into what you were doing, what were some of the tactics that you were employing in that time to get people to buy into what you see excuse me, what you were seeing was some of the issues you wanted to tackle?
Yeah, I mean, I give people advice all the time about this, about things that they should look at doing when they want to start something. Is like understanding your why. Like, why are you doing this? I think the
Mhm.
biggest thing is people don't know how to just tell. And I think Paul, this is one thing that you always work on at your organization is people telling their story, right?
Mhm.
And I think for me, it was, I have a dream, or I'm not trying to sound like Martin Luther King, but I wanted to see my community be better, right? I wanted to see buildings that were not being redeveloped, repurposed. I wanted to see families come together. I thought there was a big breakdown in the families, in community. I felt like people were really engaging a lot of kids, but they weren't engaging the parents. I just saw a lot of different breakdowns that was happening at that time, and I wanted to see what we could do to solve it. And that was the biggest thing about buying in was one, people saw that I was being responsible fiscally early. So that was one thing that people saw, that was one thing. So then when I told the story, it was like, yeah, I understand this is the story, but this is also what I'm doing to actually build the infrastructure. And this is why I want you to come along with me and why you should come along on this journey uh, to make this a success story, because we're all going to be able to sit back one day and point to those, unique, fabulous things that happened over time. So I think it's more or less telling your story, why it's personal to you, and why people should walk alongside of you and help you in this journey. I tell people your best salesperson is you, especially when you're leading the effort. And if you can't tell people why they should walk alongside of you and why this is important, then you need to find somebody that can tell that story. But I think it's that personal thing of really getting past your ego, getting past your pride, and really being honest with people. Of my community is struggling. Neighborhood that I grew up in is struggling, and these places are struggling. And whatever it might be, these are the things that really really impacted me in my life. And I don't want to see people experience like I've experienced, us being homeless when we had a house fire when I was 7 years old, and I've experienced what it means to be homeless. And so I understand that living out of a hotel, when people say, man, I gotta have my kids in a hotel, that wasn't an easy thing for my mom, and that was very expensive, going to the restaurants and, because you got to eat out almost every day and you already don't have money and,
Hmm.
those things. So, I mean, it creates a whole nother different dynamic. People think, oh, living out the hotel is great. It's like, no, it's not. So, it was really understanding what was important for me, right? And then explaining that to people and then listening and understanding what's important to them. I think that's the other thing is um a lot of people just sit down and talk about themselves, but they don't want to take the moment to sit down and learn about somebody else and what their story is. And then you find out there's a lot of commonalities.
I think you're absolutely on point there. But not only that, the story aspect that you're talking about. There's also a macro story what that community first plays in when it comes to having your organization be founded and housed in Flint, and how that has been part of your story there. Because as you know, over the past uh, 10, 15 years, we're close to almost the time of your founding, with the Flint water crisis. But not only that, but Flint's situation with GM and all this other, all that backstory that
Hmm.
overarches it. How
Yeah.
have it's almost like you explaining in the micro what you want to do with this community, while in the macro, the rest of the country sees Flint for the misconception that it is. So how have you kind of like played in your organization into to making sure that folks around the state don't fall into that misperception of what Flint is?
Yeah, I think it gets back to just telling that story of, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different things that are going on, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
understanding the other groups and people that are working in your community, in your neighborhoods, and be able to help tell some of their story, right? And how you're collectively trying to do good to really uh create an impactful um I mean, just really to create impact, right, in those particular neighborhoods or communities. What happens is we get so centrally focused on the individualism instead of the collectivism. So I think it's telling the story of the city. Is like, yeah, you'll hear all the time, city of Flint is, is resilient, right? Yes, we had the water crisis, and then right after that, you had COVID,
Mm-hmm.
right? So think about you had issues with water, and then people had to stay home and had to use their water. So like we had trifecta, we had like a trifecta. So you go from recession, emergency manager to water crisis to COVID. Like it was just like boom, 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 right? But guess what? It was a lot of good things. People always try to put their hands together. There's a lot of organizations, nonprofit, for-profit companies, foundations that are always trying to put their hands to the work to say, hey, what can we do to solve these problems in our community? Now, is everything perfect? Nope, definitely not perfect. But guess what we can do? We can focus on the good or we can focus
Mm-hmm.
on the bad. One thing I heard a gentleman say to me before, you can either be the person to impact your environment or you can let your environment impact you. So I choose to impact my environment.
That's perfect. And speaking of that, impacting your environment, you mentioned that um, you used your entrepreneurial background to help spearhead your development of this organization. How so? How did that story impact
Well,
your new
well,
story?
yeah, I think what I would say is the business acumen that I brought in, I didn't come in expecting from the get-go the foundation was going to give us money. So I was like, is there ways we can generate revenue? Is there things that we can do? Is there levers we can pull? What resources are available? Just like you look at a small business. I really came in and started an organization saying, okay, if this thing is not really functioning, in 3 or 4 years, just like you would with a business, I'm gonna be done with it. You know what I mean? If I can't hire an employee, if I can't do this, if it can't start finding a way to sustainability, I'm not going to do it. And within that 3 or 4 years, once we got there, it's like, okay, this thing is starting to grow. It's starting to have legs. It's starting to be able to sustain itself. You're starting to have year over year, support. You're starting to, generate some level of income and revenue that can help support itself. And that's how I always look at it. I always tell people it's about being mission focused, but being business minded. As a nonprofit, I think that's one of the most important things that people can do. Is at the end of the day, it's still a business. You got employees, you got income, you got revenue, you got, you know what I'm saying, you got expenses. You have to manage all those things just like you would. Now the difference is you won't have all the time where the things that you're doing doesn't always generate revenue, right? Like if you're giving away food or if you're doing certain things don't generate because it's a giving aspect of it. But what are those things that we can? Not saying that your organization is going to be 100% revenue, earned, right, or earn revenue, but what are things that we do well, what are things that we can do, and where are those things that we can charge for. And I've always just thought about that from the beginning, even if it's very minimal, or try to get somebody else to pay for them, right, to pay for those particular services. But that's been very important for me as an organization. I think that's why we've been able to weather some difficult storms, is because we always look at it as what can we do um, as an organization to make sure that we're trying to be as sustainable as possible.
Speaking of which, talk to me a little bit about what are the services that you guys primarily do? What are like the three or four, or I don't know if there's even six or seven main core services that you provide to the community?
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on what community we're in because we serve different communities and different things. I mean, but we have our, so we do affordable housing. So we're an affordable housing developer. We do our own in-house property management. So we have our own property management. And then also we work with communities to help with them with events and community engagement as well. But we have three pillars. I mean, we have supportive services, which is our community services that we offer not only to residents but to the greater community. We do a lot of advocacy work as well to advocate for things and policy change. So, I mean, as far as our core services, we have really three pillars: it's economic mobility, equitable real estate development, and engaged communities. Kind of under those three pillars, all our services kind of come with under those. But we offer a whole gamut of programming to the community. Like this year alone, I think we have over 95 events on the books. Just events and just events this year.
Wow, that's incredible. Well done. And is that the highest it's been? Is there like more?
No, that's about what we're averaging between 80 and 95.
Okay.
Uh, if we pick up another city here, it might increase, to be more than that. But that includes a lot of our different community engagement and different programs that we do. Yep.
How many cities are you in then?
So we're in Flint, Lansing, Saginaw, Detroit. But we serve like the Oakland, Wayne County, Genesee County. So then we have an office in Detroit as well. And then we're also in Indiana, so we do work there as well.
Now, do you basically, like, when you go into an area, you just assess what that need is that you can provide, or do you?
Yeah, we do assessments. We talk to community partners and leaders. We ask them what's important for them, what things that they need, and then we kind of go through our services from there and see what works and what might be sustainable and something that doesn't have to leave immediately if somebody doesn't cut you a check this year.
Right, right. And so with that, what have you seen has been the biggest shift between when you started to now? I mean, what has been like the biggest like focus shift that like a trend that you've really seen that you guys have really pinpointed?
Or you saying shift? I mean, I think there was, when you had George Floyd, you had a few other things that happened in America over the last few years. I mean, it wasn't just that. I
Mhm.
mean, I think I saw a shift of, organizations trying to give more funding to Black-led organizations. I will say this: I am not. It's not a lot of Black male leaders in the nonprofit space, and there's not a lot of highly funded Black organizations. And that's just historically how it's been. I saw some shift where people tried to do some additional funding in those particular spaces, which was great. It's just wonder, will some of that stuff continue? And it wasn't just because organizations were black led or minority led. It was because these were organizations that was doing impactful work, but was getting less funding than organizations that was doing similar work that was getting twice the amount of funding and might produce less results. So, um, it really gets down to results based. I think people were really trying to have a lens of what can we do to balance the playing field on a funding perspective. I saw a lot of that starting to shift. I also started seeing a lot of organizations or nonprofits that were struggling to maintain and sustain because just overall in general there's a lot of need, right? And so you see less resource, right, and more need. So the thing is that the wealth gap right now is getting larger, so people are getting wealthier and people are getting poorer all at the same time. So as you see this gap begins to continue to get larger, is what needs to happen to help people gain wealth. And those are the things that we focus on as well. We have different services that we provide to help people to give them aspects to help them become more wealthy as individuals. So that's a pretty cool program that we're doing.
That is cool. One of the things, that um, while researching you in the podcast, that I've noticed you have a couple of extensive experiences in a couple different areas. One is like, financial health and wealth, as well as being on boards, and you have longevity at being on these boards. So, and a lot of those mix because you really dive into the aspect of probably the structural aspect of nonprofits in a leadership perspective to see them succeed. So why do why be in these areas as well as trying to lead your own nonprofit? Because
Well,
you're doing a lot of work.
I think it's just more or less is like where much is given, much is required, and it's about sharing information. I mean, you're supposed to serve on boards because it's something that means something to you and something that you feel like you can add value to. Like you shouldn't serve on a board because you think it provides you a name, but
Hmm.
you should serve on a board because it's something that you feel like you can bring something to the table and that you can add to that organization and its longevity. So I mean, me serving on different boards, like I served on CEDM for a number of years, the Community Economic Development Association of Michigan. I serve on the Mass Transportation Authority board. I serve on some advisory boards, some corporate boards. I believe that the community is always needed at the table, as far as when it comes to someone making sure they're speaking up when decisions are being made. And I understand kind of the talk between philanthropy, community, and corporate, right? And so those are, I think, three totally different, distinct conversations, and you have to understand them all. But it helps you to blend and make decisions that are strategically important to make sure it's not a win-lose situation, but there's a win-win-win, right? In community, philanthropy, and people. So in corporations.
Well, how do you manage to block off your day with all these different organizations that you have a piece of the pie in?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's just scheduling, right? I think
Mhm.
that's what anything is, scheduling and having a great team of people that you have that you can count on. I mean, but the thing is, I mean, these things don't require all that time. I mean, it's you might be meeting quarterly or and then making sure they don't overlap. So like here recently, I got off two boards uh, because there was no way I could continue those with the other boards that I was serving on. So with the overlap is making sure that you're managing your time. I'm always about time management and making sure that that's done effectively. And I'm a big component of proper time management, proper preparation. Really gets you to be proactive rather than living in a reactive perspective. So most of the things that I'm a part of, or I've had some proactive thought, I look at it long term and also understand there's a point where I might have to exit, and when is that time,
Mhm.
is going to get there.
I mean, what do you feel that um, the boards that you've been on or are currently on are really enriching you? What areas are they enriching you
Yeah,
as
I
as
mean
a person?
that more or less comes around. You get to meet some very unique and very smart people, right? Well, you hope, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the goal is always be around people that are smarter than you, and hopefully the people that are at the board table and some of the organizations that I've been a part of. You meet very smart people. You're able to network, meet people in different spaces that allows you to offer feedback, and when they need a listening ear they'll give you a call. Like I've met some people that work with state agencies or federal agencies or work at different places, and when they need somebody to call, they'll pick up the phone. Hey Glenn, hey, I was thinking about this when it comes to housing. I didn't know how to express that. Can you talk to this person about this, have this conversation? So it's really about having, like I say, that spirit of collectivism, about coming to the table and understanding, hey, this is what I bring, and then learning about other people. You really have to sit down and learn about people. It's not about you just showing up. It's about you understanding who's around you and who's showing up and learning about them as well. So I think that's been the most enriching thing is learning about other people and their stories and why are they at the table, and why are they sitting there and what gets them going, and it makes for a very good board when you do that.
Now, with you uh, being in the game as a nonprofit founder leader for the last 15 years in different communities, in different aspects, in different and being around the folks, how do you feel about the continuation or how the nonprofit world has evolved and developed? What do you see? And I know that uh, you, like we were talking about 10 minutes ago about, you know, leaning into the positive aspects of how the work gets done. What positive aspects do you see evolving and moving forward into the future?
Are you just saying, just with organizations in general, just
Yeah.
how? I mean, I guess the biggest thing is understanding how to use technology, right, to your advantage, streamlining processes, making things more efficient, seeing if
Mhm.
there's a lot of waste. I think one thing that happens sometimes within the nonprofit space is you end up getting a whole bunch of people to do a whole bunch of jobs, and you pay people less, right? Always try to be a component of, like, people should be able to do good and do well.
Mhm.
That's my thought process around it, is that I would rather have 10 talented people, very talented people, and pay them well that they'll stick around than pay 25 people that I have to handhold, that I have to watch, that I have to you see what I'm saying? Like, so
Mhm.
I think that's the other thing, is people taking a different perspective about nonprofit work. Is like, you want talented people and individuals that are talented to be in the nonprofit space to really help solve problems. Like, that's what you want. You want people that are creative thinkers. You want smart people in business. You want smart operations people. You want people that can go and walk in any company and do the same thing, but do it for your organization, to make sure that it's functioning. So that's what I would say, is making sure that you're taking more of a business minded approach, being efficient with your work and using technology where you can, to streamline processes and systems, and cut your costs where you can.
Absolutely. So with
And
all
then and then meet your mission, right? But with no
Mhm.
money, I tell people, you have mission and you have the money. It's two M's. But with no mission, with no money, there's no mission, right? And so
Mhm.
you really have to have that honest conversation: is, can we survive?
So how do you uh survive the day to day when you're not, let's say you're not in your office? What are some things that you do to like decompress, and because you're doing a lot?
I mean, but this is the thing. This is not stressful. And when I say it's not stressful, like,
Mhm.
this is, now, not saying that I don't have frustrating days, but like,
Mhm.
I enjoy doing what I'm doing. So that's the other thing, is like, I have passion, right? So I have passion about what I'm doing. So when I get up in the morning, I am passionate about solving the problem. I'm passionate about the
Hmm.
work we do. I'm passionate about our team. So that doesn't really make this feel like there's all this stress that bolds up in me because I have to decompress. This work to me is more helps me decompress because I'm actually able to see myself help solve something, help to do something good in the community and to help. Um, this does something for me, helping see communities and see people and individuals be better, right? And in turn, it just continues to help me. So, I mean, there's a spirit of reciprocity. As I give, I receive, right?
Mm.
As I give to the community, I receive. So it's, that's where I'm at, man. This is not about me. But I mean, I go on vacation when we can with my family. I go for, a run or a walk, ride my bike, listen to music, go in my gym. I mean, whatever I can do, spend time with my kids, love to do that in my family, read a book. So I'm always doing something. So it keeps me busy.
Hey, you're just doing the good work, and that's amazing. We really, really appreciate that. And well, if anybody wants to know a little bit more about you and what you're doing at Communities First, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can go to communitiesfirstinc.org. So communitiesfirstinc.org. And on there, they can find all our social media platforms. They can go to our YouTube channel. They can go to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We're on all of those. And then also we have our podcast, which was called the No Name Podcast, which is on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple. So they can go to any of those. And we're releasing shows every month, so they'll have an opportunity to go in there and learn a little bit more about the stories and the things that we have going on.
That's incredible. Well, thanks, Glenn, for stopping by. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Hey, Paul, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate the work that you're always doing to tell people stories, right, in a way that people can understand it with clarity. So you keep up the good work because I know pulling stories out of people is not always the easy thing because sometimes people feel like they have nothing to say and realize, but what you're doing is helping people let them know, hey, you
Hmm.
have something to say. We just got to figure out how to channel it and how to get it out. So you keep up the good work that you're doing there with your organization as well.
Appreciate that. And also, thank you all again for tuning into this as we are also on Spotify with this Mission Control podcast and YouTube and all the podcasting platforms. So make sure you stay tuned every week or every other week for this show. And if you have anybody out there that you want to hear about their journey, email us at missioncontrol@UnoDeuce.com. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe on all those platforms and leave a review. Thank you again for stopping by or listening to us, and we'll see you next time in the Control Center.